we had we would have a weekly meeting, or maybe like twice a week. We would all get together, and we would all everybody would be passing around pages and basically just ripping each other apart. And we're from New York. We were a vicious group. Like we were just mean to one another. But
this is garbage.
This sucks. This is terrible. Give me the other one. All right.
One of my really good friends, Donnie, is still my best friend. I've never seen a person get better in like a few minutes. From that one time I threw up one of his pages, I was like, this sucks. I threw it up and I stuck a Bowie knife through it.
That is so dramatic. Oh, I love it, dude. It's like, you know what I think of this? I'm gonna kill it with a knife. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh man.
The next page was spectacular.
Welcome to the Dastardly Dingoes podcast, a show that celebrates all things nerdy. You'll get an insider's look into the world of comic books, graphic novels, TV and film, gaming and pop culture, as well as the technologies that drive all of it. Now, are you ready to get nerdy?
Welcome to Season 3 of the Dastardly Dingoes podcast, the show about all things nerdy. We discuss nerd news, movies, TV shows, games, comics, and so much more. I'm Brian.
I'm Jeremy.
And brace yourselves, because it's about to get nerdy. Welcome back, folks. We are so excited to be back with you all for another amazing season. We have a whole lot in store for you this season. And here to help us get started is our first guest of Season 3. And this guest is an Indy Comics veteran. He's been in the industry for quite some time and is currently working on his epic series, the Oswald Chronicles. He also hosts a YouTube show called Indy Comics Explained, and is a frequent flyer of the Indie Vault channel. Ladies and gentlemen, we give you the jack of all trades, the fantastic JD Calderon.
Thank you. I appreciate
Welcome
it.
to the show, buddy.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
Good. How's 2021 treating you so far?
So far, so good. I mean, look, 2020 was horrible, but it could have been worse.
It could have. The world could have ended, literally.
Yes.
Yes.
Literally.
Yeah. Instead of just figuratively and emotionally.
Right.
Oh man. Well, now what we bestow upon you, sir, is what we like to bestow on every guest. Is you are now knighted as an honorary dingo.
Oh, thank you.
So change your LinkedIn. Make sure all your business cards are updated.
Yeah.
This matters. It'll get you places, I'm telling you.
This is better than buying the land in Scotland. And
absolutely. Yeah. Screw that little patch of green. No, man. This is dingo status.
That's right.
This is up there with being knighted by the Queen.
Right.
I'm officially part of the Dingo Nation.
That's
indeed.
Right.
Indeed. Whether you want to be or not.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm honored.
Well, to jump in, we are going to ask you a couple questions that we ask everybody.
Cool.
So the first one is, out of all the different kinds of nerds that there are, right?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of nerd would you say you are, sir?
Probably a fantasy nerd.
Okay.
More than anything else.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I like fantasy more than anything else. So I do dabble in science fiction, but it's mostly fantasy.
Okay. Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So the next one is we're going to talk about movies. So what are your top 5 movies?
Top 5 movies. Okay. So Amadeus.
Wow, I don't think I've heard that on here yet. That's a great movie. Actually.
It really is.
That's awesome. When did you watch that first?
I'm old. I saw it in the theater.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
What year did it come out?
I don't remember. That's how old I am.
So long ago, back when Moses was alive.
I was a teenager, and I just remember it won the Academy Award. Yeah. And I was like, I spoke to my friend. I think we were in junior high school, and we were like, let's go see this movie. I want to see it. because it was a period piece. To me, it was like a fantasy movie.
Oh, okay.
You know,
yeah.
Everybody's dressed up in the weird clothes, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's go see this.
Yeah.
And mesmerizing. Milos Forman, that's the director. I've just loved him, love his work. You know, just about everything he's done, I've really, really enjoyed. But that movie in particular, I watch it probably once every couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that 1 or is that 5? Are you going?
That's 1.
Okay, cool.
No, that would be number 1.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. This is a tough question because it's like, okay, so there's that one. There's Spirited Away by Hayao Miyazaki.
Oh,
there you go.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I consider that perhaps for me, it's his best film.
Yeah.
You know, it's just incredible. I recently watched it again just a few days ago, and it's just a beautiful, stunning, well-told story, beautiful sentiment, which is the case in all of his movies. They just all have beautiful sentiments. So
yeah.
So that was definitely.
Yeah, I think that one and Princess Mononoke, I believe, are the 2 best scores. I think those are the best movies as well, but I think they have the best scores of all the Ghibli films, for sure.
Mononoke makes me laugh because the story's not really about Mononoke, it's about the guy.
Yeah.
You know,
that is true. It is weird. Like every time I watch it, I'm like, why is this called Princess Mononoke? I don't like. It's not about her. Like she's halfway through the movie, she's not even in it.
Right.
Like you see her in the background, and that's all.
Yeah. So. I'm sure it was probably like, well, we gotta sell it.
Right. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's a great title. It's a great title for sure.
Fantastic title.
And I mean, I guess it could, because like it's one of those things where, you know, like the title is the thing that because obviously he's like fascinated by her. So I mean, it makes sense. But yeah, it's definitely not about her at all.
No. And then let me see. Number 3 I would probably go with Lord of the Rings, the trilogy as a whole.
Yes.
I consider it one movie.
Yes, you do. You know, that's right, Jeremy. Every time, because that's my number 1 is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Every time I say it, Jeremy grumbles because he's a grumpy man that doesn't think that all 3 can count as one movie, but it does because it's one story.
No.
I look at it because you could bump them all and edit them all together.
Well, the original.
Just watch it.
We'll just call this your top 7 then.
Oh, boo. No, this is like really though, and I'll say it until you know they force me to stop. It was published originally. It was written as one story. Tolkien wrote it all, and then his publisher made him split it up because it was too big.
But I don't read books, so
read a book.
So it was 3 movies.
Jeremy doesn't know how to read. It's a sad thing.
That's true.
Listen, I'm sure he can write his name. He can read. So, damn, look, what? 2 more. All right, because I'll stick within the genres. All right. Okay. Oh, I would say Conan the Barbarian. First movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger, is definitely one of my favorites because it's. I mean, again, I saw it in the theater. I was a kid. It was just incredible to see that. You know, I think between that and Predator, I would count those as number 4.
Okay.
You know, that and Predator, because Predator is a movie that, like, I watch it now and it still holds up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's the crazy thing about it. I mean, it's just, it still holds up. Conan holds up, and both of those movies, I think, hold up very, very well.
It was probably one of the first times that a movie ever, like, tried to replicate the, like, infrared sight thing in a movie, you know? And that, like you said, we still, you know, a normal person still doesn't know exactly what it would look like to look at, you know, infrared screen or something like that. So in terms of holding up, it's like, I mean, we can only go on that. So it looks cool, you know, so it's one of those things that's like disconnected enough from what we know to be true that we can still just use our fantasy brain and be like, I mean, that looks good to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think it adds to the terror as well, because it's just like, it's so foreign, and the Predator is terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now, number 5, I'm a little torn on, right? Because I have like a bunch of movies that would be number 5 for me. It's like a
500-way tie.
Yeah. It's like Survive Style 5+, which I'm sure neither one of you have ever heard of.
Yeah, I've never heard of it. What is it?
It's a Japanese movie. It's a fantasy. It is bizarre. It is very strange movie, but it is. It's a Christmas movie. It's a fantastic movie. Again, with wonderful sentiment. It's a movie about where a man he perpetually his wife is constantly trying to perpetually kill him.
Okay.
He murders her, buries her, and she comes back over and over again.
Merry Christmas.
And then eventually he hires an assassin to kill her, and in the end, he finds out that he truly does love his wife.
Oh,
okay.
Well, that's a fun journey to get to that place.
Believe it or not, it's and there's so much more in between. There's this other family. There's like all sorts of stuff. It's a crazy, crazy film. If you ever get a chance to see it, I would suggest it to anybody. It's a great movie.
Where would you find it? Like,
good luck.
Right, that's what I was going to say.
Good luck. I mean, because, all right, there was a period probably between 95 and 2005. Here in New York City, we had these stores. So, all right, so here's the thing with these stores. They were porn shops, okay? But there was some kind of crazy ordinance that in the front of the store, you couldn't put up porn. So what they would do is they would get all these Japanese and Chinese bootleg movies, and they would put them up in the front. Everybody knew they were porn shops, but they still had these movies. So me and my friend, and they were cheap. You would get like 3 of them for $10 or whatever.
Yeah.
So
it was like a really intense Spencer's Gifts.
I guess I never.
Where like Spencer's Gifts, it's same setup. Like at the front of the store, they're usually in malls. The front of the store is just like T-shirts, and the back of the store is like sex toys. So it's that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So you would go in, and you could. Yeah, I remember the first time my friend took me, and I think I spent $70. I walked out like this huge stack of movies.
Cool.
So, yeah. Another movie would be Star Wars, the original trilogy. My Hope, and all those films.
Yeah.
Again, and I'm old. I saw the original one in the movie in theater.
Okay.
My mother took me.
Jealous.
Yeah, I was 10, so.
Yeah, man.
So it was a long time ago.
I did get to see all of them in theaters when they got re-released, and I want to say they were the originals. I think they were.
No. I mean, it had the new edited stuff in it from Lucas.
Yeah, okay, I guess it did. Yeah, the special editions. I guess it did. Yeah. Okay. So, well, I still got to see them in theaters, which was fun. So,
No, it's definitely awesome. And then the next is probably a slew of movies from, and now I'm forgetting his name, but he's another famous director out of Japan. He did the Yojimbo.
Oh yeah,
his
name?
Yojimbo movies and Seven Samurai, and I'm
okay,
like Akira Kurosawa.
Yeah, there it is. Yep.
So Akira Kurosawa, like that first Yojimbo movie is hilarious.
Yeah,
it's funny as anything.
Yeah,
and I mean, there's a lot of murder and death to go along with it.
Well, of course.
But the stuff the guy does in the beginning of the movie is just classic and just wonderful. And then Seven Samurai is just his own thing. It's just another great movie.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
I watched Yojimbo for the first time, like I don't know, like a couple months ago, probably. Just on a recommendation of a friend, and loved it. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, if you ever wanted to watch more like Japanese samurai movies, I would suggest Zatoichi, The Blind Swordsman.
Okay.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, there's a series of movies. It was like 30 of them. There's a lot of them.
Oh wow!
Right, all of them are good, but there's like 8 or 9 of them that are like incredible. Like there's like he has 8 or 9 excellent movies.
Yeah,
all of them are good though. But there's like 8 or 9 of them that are like they're like those are the ones you want to see.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, you could Google them. I'm sure there are lists out there. You can Google them and see which ones. And it's literally about a guy. He's not a samurai. He's a blind swordsman, and he walks through, and he's a masseur, so he's looked down upon. And he's blind, and he's constantly begging, and he's a notorious gambler.
Okay.
And he murders his way through these movies. Like there's always some situation he finds himself in. He's I was like, how are there still people in Japan?
Yeah.
I was like, how did this? You killed everybody.
It's like the fight scene in Kill Bill.
Well, that's where it developed.
I was gonna say, I'm sure that's probably where.
That's where it's from. Yeah,
yeah.
That's where he took that from. Yeah, from Zatoichi. So yeah. So there it is. Cool. There's my top 40.
Awesome.
Your top 5 and then some.
It's totally fine.
Yeah, man. That's the thing is we have a top 5. There really are no rules here. This is, we have no structure. Come on now. So tell us a little about your story, JD. Take us back to tiny JD, and all the way up to the point where you really got into writing comics. How fill in those blanks. How'd you get there?
Okay, I started lying at a very early age. Okay? So I was telling stories, and I was so young, I didn't even know I was lying.
Yeah.
I was just telling stories. Yeah. So, yeah. And then at some point, my teachers noticed this about me. And they were like, maybe you should get this kid to write these down.
Yeah.
And, you start writing them down.
Cool.
So I probably started when I was like 7 or 8, just writing stories.
Yeah.
Comics I started writing when I was about 12 or 13. My brother had brought home a huge stack of comics,
Mm-hmm.
And and it's funny because he imprinted in my brain. He said, "Thor is your favorite character," and I was like, "Really? Yes, Thor is my favorite character. So Thor is my favorite character."
That's awesome. I love that. It's like there was really no reason. It just he just commanded it, and you're like, "Okay, I guess this is my destiny. I have to love Thor." Which is you could pick worse characters for sure, man. Thor's pretty awesome.
Yep. Exactly.
So really quick sidebar, what's your favorite Thor story?
Walter Simonson's run on Thor.
Okay, yeah. I hear that a lot. So yeah.
Walter Simonson's run on Thor, although J. Michael Straczynski had a really good run on Thor.
Okay.
He never got to finish it, which is a damn shame.
Yeah.
But the way, just what he had done in, I don't know, the 14 issues that he did was excellent. Yeah. He ended up leaving Marvel and comics altogether because of the situation. Like, they wanted him to stop his story and include some kind of crossover thing, and he was like, F you, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So he was just like, he just ended it. Because for me, he had the most terrifying version of Loki.
Ooh, okay.
Any of the versions. Because Loki came back as a woman. Because what happened was,
I remember that. I just didn't realize I didn't connect those dots. Okay.
Yeah. Because what happened, Ragnarok had happened.
Mm-hmm.
Thor had come back, and he had the Odin Force, and he was recreate all of the Asgardians were being reborn in the bodies of people, so they were just coming back. So you had Heimdall and all these other characters, Sif, and all the other ones coming. And then Loki was reborn in the body of a woman, and ultra beautiful, but Loki.
Yeah.
We're guys.
That's dangerous.
Right? Yeah. We're guys. Yeah. So we understand what runs through our minds. You understand? Innately, I could look at you guys and say, yeah, that's a special kind of freak. That's a special kind of freak, right? It's like, and we all understand that, right? But it's kind of something that we kind of hide from, from our other sides, or from the women. They have their own thing too. It's a little different. You look in their eyes and there's something going on there. I just don't understand it. But the same thing for us, though. Yeah. Now imagine being a dude for so long, and understanding that mentality, and then him being who he is, the manipulator that he is, and a genius, being in this beautiful woman's body, like the exact havoc and chaos he could sow, and that's why for me he was the most terrifying version, because it was a seductress, but it was a person that understood the mentality of men in a way that was so intimate that he just knew it. Yeah. So it was just like, so he knew exactly what buttons to hit on any dude. Yeah. And it would just be like, oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. Man.
That's funny.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
That is terrifying. Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, sorry. I didn't mean to derail us. But yeah, keep going. So after your brother commanded you to love Thor.
Right. So, I kept collecting comics. At the time, it was, and then I was introduced to my first comic shop probably when I was 11 or 12. It was called Super Snipe. And it was one of the first comic shops ever opened in the country. I don't know. It wasn't the first, It was probably like the 7th or 9th or whatever. And at the time, I had Super Snipe, Eastside Comics, and the Batcave, all within 3 or 4 blocks of each other in Manhattan, not far, probably about a mile from my house.
Yeah.
And man, like, talk about a childhood. I would just run over there every weekend with like $5 or $10 from my dad. I was like, and books were 40, 50 cents at the time. So you could walk away with a decent size stack of books.
Jeez. Yeah.
And, it was great. My first independent comic I saw a Super Snipe was Jack Kirby's Captain Victory. Was it Captain Victory?
I don't know that I've ever heard of that.
Let's see.
Yeah, I think it was Captain Victory. It was by Pacific Comics. And that was the first one I had ever seen. And I remember picking it up. It was my first introduction to Jack Kirby. And it was my first introduction to Indy Comics.
Yeah.
It was Captain Victory. You're correct.
Captain Victory. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, it just gave me like a life. Like, I was like, wow, this is just so different than what I was seeing from Marvel and DC, that it was just very, very, it just captivated me. And then another store opened up across the street that eventually put the kibosh on Super Snipe. It was called Action Comics. And there I discovered Kamiko with the Elementals.
Oh, okay.
I discovered Mage. I discovered, what is it? Captain Victory? No, Captain Paragon.
Okay.
From AC Comics, which is a book I don't.
Oh yes, I know. Yes,
Captain Paragon, Phase 1, Phase it, like all these crazy books, man. I mean, there was just a slew of them, and it was just a lot of fun, And then it's just just growing up in that whole thing, and just seeing indie comics, and how they grew up, because that was like, I was still collecting Marvel and DC, like Frank Miller's Daredevil is like one of my all-time favorites.
Yes.
What it did for me as a writer, and just as because I think I picked up first when I was 12.
Yeah.
And I remember getting, I think it was a Daredevil 168, and it was the first appearance of Elektra.
Yep.
And she, that was the first time I read a comic, and I said, if I ever were to do a comic, I'd do it like this.
Okay.
You understand? Like, I wanted this quality, I don't think I've ever achieved it, but I'm trying.
Hey man, look, I can't. I mean, I'm the same way. Frank Miller's Daredevil, and Frank Miller's take on Batman, is that was when I decided I want to make comics. That's what I want to do with my life. Just the way that he put words to the panels, and the beauty of his art, and it was. And I remember the thing, I think I've watched it, I don't know how many times, hundreds of times, is the special features on the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. The documentary that they did of all the creators of Daredevil up to that point. And, Frank Miller's segment, I think I've watched his segment just discussing how he approaches comics, how he specifically approached Daredevil, and, saying, I remember he says, he's like, there was one point in his childhood where he folded a bunch of papers together, started drawing on them. He brought them to his mom and was like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And when I heard that for the first time, I was like, that's me. And I was about the same age. I was like 12, 13, whenever that movie was released on DVD. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And so I relate to that so much.
Yeah. I gave up on the thought of drawing anything in junior high school. Because I was writing and I was drawing.
Yeah.
And then I met a guy in there, and he became my best friend. And I saw his artwork, and I was like, oh, I don't have to do this anymore. I really don't.
Yeah.
He was like leaps. He was like light years ahead of me. And I was just like, I don't really, I'll stick to writing. Yeah, I can write. There you go. So that's what I gave up. I was just like, all right, I don't have to draw anymore. All right. So I'll just write. So it kind of sussed itself out. But when I really figured out I wanted to produce and publish my own comic books, I was probably about 14, 15. I was getting what's called a CBG at the time, which is the equivalent of Bleeding Cool, CBR, and I guess any other news site smashed into one paper. Right. And it came out every week, and it was produced by the Thompsons, and it was excellent.
Nice.
And in there, I saw an article, a tiny little article, and it was like, two guys from Boston or from Massachusetts do well for themselves with this new book, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, yes.
Number 2.
Yes.
See, it's funny. I get that reaction from a lot of people, but my reaction was I looked at the picture and I was like, oh, this isn't that good. I can do better than this. And that's why I got into doing comics, because I was just like, I looked at it.
You're like, I can do this. Yeah.
I was a little insulted, and I was like, I could do better than this.
You're like, wait a minute, are you serious? These guys made it? Come on, I can do this.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I was 14, maybe 15 years old, you know? Yeah. The hubris of youth.
That's right.
Indeed. Yeah. Oh, man. That's funny. It sounds like you and I have a similar story too, man, because Eastman and Laird, dude, like just their, I mean, of course, their story never happens to like anybody. You know what I mean? Like, my gosh, what happened with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? First of all, with the comics, like they put issue 1 out and it sold out. Like that doesn't happen, you know, for indie creators. So it's just like, and then all the stuff with the buying the rights for the show and the toys and the movies, like it all just happened to them so quickly. But their story, I actually learned because I loved the cartoons and the movies when I was a kid growing up. I knew nothing about the original comics until I was a teenager. And then I read the first, and of course, you know, the first issue of Ninja Turtles is kind of a spoof of Frank Miller's Daredevil. Right. You know, and so like being introduced to already have read Frank Miller's Daredevil at the time, I picked up the original issue of Ninja Turtles and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like you said, it's kind of like a lesser version of this. And you know, like what is, and then I read their story and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is it's solidified. Like this is what I want to do. Yeah. So.
What's funny is I never got into the teenage. I never liked them. Yeah. I never liked them. I didn't like the movies. I didn't like any of it.
Really?
But, yeah, I didn't like any of it. But I always enjoyed their other work.
Okay. Okay.
You know, I think, like one of them did like this book on racers things. He had like these 2 volumes. I would always see him in shows, and I would always buy copies from them. And then I liked the stuff that Eastman did when he was over at Heavy Metal.
Yeah.
And Tundra, and you know that stuff. And yeah, I mean, I like their other stuff. Fugitoid. You know, right? I like their other stuff.
Yeah.
But like their main thing that they were known for, I
didn't care for. Yeah.
I couldn't get it. Although I hear the latest with Last Ronin is really good and it's done by the 2 of them.
Oh my gosh, yes, it's so good.
Yeah, when it comes out,
dig that one.
Yeah, when it comes out as a hardcover, I'll pick it up.
There you go. Yeah, no, man, I can't recommend that enough. I think that was probably like the sequel comic book series of Batman the Animated Series that came out last year, and The Last Ronin. Like you couldn't have, like, that pretty much encapsulates my childhood fascinations, like those 2 things. And so like the fact that we're getting more of that was fantastic. But no, I The Last Ronin, it doesn't read like a Ninja Turtles comic. Right. So if you don't like it, you might, or you don't like turtles, you might really like this. Okay. For sure.
Yeah, but then again, I stopped reading it like forever ago. I stopped at like issue 10 of the original series.
That's all you need. You don't need, you just need, whenever you read it, it's not like it's just, you have to have the basic knowledge of the Ninja Turtles and you will appreciate this book. You don't really have to know all the stuff.
Yeah. So. And I mean, and that's not to say I hate it. It's just not, you know, it's not something I seek out.
Not your thing. Yeah.
It's just not my thing.
I got you. Yeah. See, like with me, I was like fascinated from a young age. They indoctrinated me early. Right. You know, they got me when I was like 4. So that was really early on. So you know, I mean, you can see in the corner here, I have my Leonardo. Yeah. So, but yeah.
No, I got you, man. I mean, because one of the things that got me early on is I was in high school, right? Things were working our way up, right? So I hit high school, and I'm riding on the trains because, you know, here in New York, you know, we were at subways, and there were these posters of these characters, and it was Armor, Megalith, Silver Streak, and it was like, what the hell is that? And it was Neil Adams' company, Continuity Comics, and they had put up these huge 24 by 30, so like regular movie posters. Yeah. But they were about comic books. I thought they were movies. it looked incredible.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Right?
awesome. Yeah.
And I remember when I finally, it was in the Batcave. I went in there and I saw the comics and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I got those and it was just like, wow. You know, the stories were never all that good. Neil's not a writer.
No, he's not.
He's a fantastic artist,
Mhm.
great ideas guy. Great, the stuff in them just looks incredible. A
Yeah.
lot of it's inked by Rudy Nebris. It cracks me up because it doesn't matter who pencils it, you know Rudy inked it.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, but it's to such a high standard. It's just like incredible to look
Yeah.
at. You know, Rudy Nebris is, woof. I mean, that guy, woof, man, incredible. Like, you know, you can see why Neil was like, yeah, you got to come work for me. Period.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Neil, talk about hubris. I mean, if Neil picks you and then has something good to say about you, you've earned it. You know, I mean, like that. That's why he's even said before, there was a Fat Man on Batman by Kevin Smith, an episode where he interviewed Neil Adams,
Right.
and Neil spent a lot of time talking about himself, which is fine. That's why he's there.
Yeah.
But you could tell he really likes to talk about himself. But the one person that he like stopped and then bragged on, of course, was Denny O'Neil, and who unfortunately we lost last year. But you know, so you know the person is really, really good if Neil Adams, you know, brags about them for more than a few minutes.
Yeah.
So no, no doubt. You know, he definitely picks the best people to work with for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, him and Denny were friends. You know, they had their runs.
Yeah.
What's funny is when my wife Daphne, when she was in college, she took Denny O'Neil's course on writing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so she went to the School of Visual Arts. What was funny is the course was from like 7 to 9 in the evening, right? So I was like, well, I'm not going to let you go home alone at those hours.
Yeah.
So I would pick her up every day, and she asked Denny if I could sit in on the class.
Oh.
So I got to sit in on the entire semester.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
That's so you just pretty much took his class too. That's awesome, dude. Oh, what was that like?
That was interesting because I'm self-taught.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting to see that the concepts he was talking about were things I was already utilizing.
Yeah.
You know, so
you
it was
just
stuff.
didn't know what to call it.
Right.
Exactly. Like I was like, oh, somebody had already sussed this out for me. Okay, nice. You know, it's just like, you know, I've been thinking about this crap and here it is. Somebody already had the answer.
Yes.
Yeah. I think honestly, that's one of the biggest barriers to people progressing creatively and trying to like, you know, especially nowadays and trying to seek out knowledge. Like, you know, I hear people all the time, like you can learn anything on YouTube, and that's true. But what if you don't know what to call the thing that you want to figure out how to do?
Yeah.
It takes you hours and hours and hours to finally get to understand the vocabulary. And, you know, being a self-taught, like graphic design and photography and videography and things like that, I completely agree. Like, it's just different. You have to figure out that vocabulary first. And then when you're watching those, you're like, oh, okay, that's what that is.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Or you see it, like, especially with using like Photoshop and things like that. There's things that you did, like, we'll call it manually, that took you like 50 steps. And then you're in a class and they're like, you just click this button and it does all of that. You're like, oh my God, I've wasted so much time.
Yeah. Oh man, there was a Comic-Con that I was at where the guy next to me, you know, it was early on when I had just started working digitally. There was a guy next to me who had been doing digital, you know, comics for a long time. And I just like kind of glanced over at one point, and he's like, I couldn't figure out how to, in Clip Studio, how to fill in an area without it filling in the entire picture, which sounds very simple. And in Photoshop, it's a lot more simple, but Clip Studio, it's different. So I was like, how? And so like I had figured out like how to do it. You just like kind of take that color, trace around these edges, and then you can do it. And it took forever. Same thing happened, Jeremy. I looked over. He did like 3 clicks and did it. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. What usually takes me like 5 minutes at a time, it took this guy like 10 seconds to do. And I was just like, yeah. So
it's an important learning session.
It is. And I value those things. Since I started, doing comics professionally, it was one of those deals where I was like, okay, so like now I really need to know how to tell somebody what I do. And so like, but I did exactly what you said, Jeremy. I just scoured YouTube, and I still do, on specific terms. And, like it's things like you said, JD, things that I've been doing.
Right.
I just didn't know what to call it. Right. I had no idea how to describe it. I just did it.
Yeah.
So
my advice to anyone who's learning how to write, though, skip YouTube and get a book.
Indeed.
If you're learning how to write, skip YouTube, get a book on writing.
Yep.
It's the only way you can learn how to write is by reading it.
Yep.
The other piece of advice is if you write and you don't read anything, you're gonna suck really bad at it.
Yep.
You're gonna be real bad. It's just gonna be horrible. You're gonna love it yourself. Your mother might like it, and maybe your cousin. That's about it.
That's it. Oh man, that's so true. It's so true.
So poor is the writer who doesn't read.
Indeed.
Stephen King has a very good book on writing.
I was gonna say I love that book. Yes.
Yeah. What's funny is I've never read. It's the only book from Stephen King I've ever read.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I've read that book as well, and I haven't read any of his other books.
Yeah.
Well, that actually says quite a bit because you hate books.
That's true.
So
I just figured, like, if I ever wanted to write at some point, who better to learn from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, I sat in, I can't remember if it was like a Barnes and Noble or whatever. I just sat down and like one day. It's not a thick book.
No,
it definitely can be done in one day.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where, like, I'm sure I was frowned upon for doing that because I just sat there and read the book for like 8 hours or something.
I mean, I feel like a lot of their workers don't care if you do that. There are literally chairs there for a reason.
Right.
Like they get enough sales. They're like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. It's all returnable. They don't care.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just send it back to the publisher.
Yeah. But like, I would say that's a very strong resource, but I would also say if you have the means, Neil Gaiman's masterclass and Alan Sorkin's masterclass on writing and storytelling. Literally, I have learned more from those two individuals than I have anybody else, including Stephen King. And I think it's because, especially with Neil Gaiman, my mind, how he approaches storytelling is exactly how I approach storytelling. Just and it's different for everybody, but but thankfully, I found someone that we do things pretty much exactly the same way.
Yeah.
So I would absolutely recommend that as well.
I suggest this.
What is that?
It's backwards. It's called William Strunk Jr. and E.B. White, The Elements of Style.
Oh, okay.
Okay. This is just a grammar book. That's all it is. It's just grammar.
Yeah.
And, people forget, this is the sort of book every writer should read at least once a year.
Yeah.
I know I fail at that quite regularly. I don't think I've read it in like 2 or 3 years, but I have to go back and reread it. But it's just grammar, it's basic grammar, and it just keeps you on point.
Yeah.
Because it shows that you're not an amateur.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't know which there is there and which two is two. So,
Indeed.
It's just like, because people will just look at you like you're an idiot. You're like, what's wrong with you? You've been reading and speaking it your entire life,
Yes. How do you not know that there's an RE at the end of this? Come on now.
It's just one of those things. But let's see. All right. So going through, between my wife being in college and high school, right? I hooked up with her and a bunch of a friend of mine that he was going to art and design. He's the one who introduced me to Daphne.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, okay.
And he also introduced you he said, I'm going to bring you the best artists from my class. Right? Because I was starting up a new comic book company called Golden Realm Unlimited at the time.
Yeah.
And he brought me a bunch of guys and one gal, and the gal was Daphne. And we've been together ever since. But these guys that I hooked up with, Matt Lunsford, Zach Lenison, Poy. Well, Poy came a little bit later. He came from someplace else. But we all hooked up. We did all these books. We did Dream Weavers, we did Tall Tales, we did Reaver. And these are all books that got released
Yeah.
And we released them. And, the only problem is we were really young. We were 18, 19 years old, right? And we were releasing them annually. So we'd have Dream Weavers issue 1 come out 1 year, and then number 2. But the thing is, though, is between those issues, you'd see a huge jump in quality.
Right? Yeah.
Because we were young, and like the guys would, everybody was getting better leaps and bounds. We would have a weekly meeting, or maybe like twice a week. We would all get together, and we would all everybody would be passing around pages and basically just ripping each other apart. And we're from New York. We were a vicious group. Like we were just mean to one another. But
this is garbage.
This sucks. This is terrible. Give me the other one. All right.
One of my really good friends, Donnie, is still my best friend. I've never seen a person get better in like a few minutes. From that one time I threw up one of his pages, I was like, this sucks. I threw it up and I stuck a Bowie knife through it.
That is so dramatic. Oh, I love it, dude. It's like, you know what I think of this? I'm gonna kill it with a knife. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh man.
The next page was spectacular.
I guess it was worth it then.
It worked. Yeah.
It worked. Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. But yeah, that's just like the type of milieu that we grew up in. We're just like very rough and tumble, just really going at it. But we produced some really good books. It lasted for about 3 years before I was like, okay, we can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So we stopped. And all the projects fell by the wayside except for Tall Tales, because I was with Daphne. So we agreed to continue it. We kept on going. We put it in furlough. Well, no, we got picked up by, I don't even remember the name of the company, but it was a friend of ours, this guy, Daryl, and he did up to issue 4 for us, right? And it was like, and then his company went under, and they were like, okay. So, his story is hilarious, because he's a dude, he was selling pharmaceuticals, not pharmaceuticals, medical supplies.
Okay.
And he's like a bit of a super genius, this dude.
Yeah.
So at like 18, like about 19, 21, 22, he'd already made $1 million.
Oh, wow.
Liquid. He had $1 million bucks liquid that he had made on his own. Okay.
Nice.
But he had, I guess he put it, the Koreans had driven him out of business. Because they just would undercut him or whatever. They was like, all right, we got this crazy this crazy kid coming in here.
Yeah.
Eating our dinners, and they just got together and they just drove him out. But one of his dreams was to put together a publishing company, and he just blew this $1 million in like 2 or 3 years.
Oh, dude, that sucks.
Yeah. And he was a good dude. He brought over a bunch of really good artists. Some people I'm still in touch with. One guy, this guy Eric Blumrich, he's making a video game.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's done some fantastic work. He did spot illustrations for me. The guy's fantastic. He's doing a video game called Peace Island. Okay. And Eric's one of these big-brained, crazy artist guys.
Yeah.
He's just like he's so smart. He doesn't know how to articulate it. He can only show you.
Right. Yeah.
Because he starts talking to you, and it's just like he wants to eat your brain.
He's just like, what?
Yeah.
What are you saying?
Right. Why are you angry? Why are you this way? He's a perfect New Yorker from Kentucky.
There you go. All right, I dig it.
He lives in Maine, Curly's. He's living a very quiet, peaceful life.
Yes.
Just, making a video game about cats. So it's hilarious.
That's like is it just like regular, like you're a cat, you wander around?
Well, it's a place called Peace Island. It's like, I guess, a town on a little island or whatever, and everyone's disappeared. All the people have disappeared, so the cats are looking for their people. And
that's a cool premise.
Yeah, and it's like there's no, obviously it's not a shoot 'em up, but there's no real violence in it. It's a very peaceful game. It's called Peace Island for a reason.
Yeah.
It's meant to be a very chill out type of game. You just walk to the island, you answer, you solve these puzzles or whatever.
Yeah.
You pick up other, cat friends, you meet the dogs on the island, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And, you just go find your people.
All right.
That's what it's about.
Cool.
So yeah, it actually is. I'm very happy for it.
Good. That's awesome.
So yeah, after that, I guess in my mid-20s, one of my artists, Matt Lunsford, I remember we were in Disney World, and him, a couple other friends, Daphne, we all went down to Disney World, like 24, 25. And he says, comes up to me, he says, guys, I got an opportunity. Because he was working for Antarctic Press. He had done 3 issues of Ninja High School. Ninja High School. He did 3 issues of it. He was supposed to do a 4th, wasn't really happy with them in their setup, so he ended up leaving. He got another opportunity with this company called Central Park Media, CPM. And he was like, I got this opportunity, and it's to do porn. It's an adult comic. And I was like, I remember at the time, I was like, how dare you even mention this in my presence? You peasant. You peasant, get away from me.
How dare you?
How dare you?
I shall throw the holy water upon your face.
Right, exactly. 6 months later, he comes to me. He's like, yo, he says, they need a writer. And I was like, throw my name in the hat. So I went in there. It was fun. It was the funniest thing. I got interviewed for a regular job.
Yeah.
They read my comics, the stuff we had done together in the past, Dreamweavers. And they were like, yeah, you guys have a good chemistry, blah, 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 whatever. So they gave me some of these videotapes, and it was porn. And it was
so like they gave you like porn videos and you made comics out of them?
Right, because it was based on an anime called La Blue Girl.
Okay.
So, we would go in there, and what it is it was crazy. The first 2 issues are direct adaptations of the first 2 videos.
Okay.
Now, from issue 3 to 12 was a brand new story. And that's where I came in. And so I watched whatever they had, and they were like, just make something new. And I was like, okay. So I did that. And it was just really funny. And then...
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. It paid well, too. That was the funny thing.
I was going to ask. I was like, I bet it paid pretty well. Yeah. That type of work gets a lot of money. So.
Yeah. And then the editor who was working on that at the time who had hired me, she ended up leaving. She had a huge disagreement with her boss or whatever. She ended up leaving. She ended up cutting a deal with Pioneer Entertainment. Yeah. And they had Tenchi Muyo. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It was kind of big in the early 90s. But Tenchi Muyo is like one of the original, I guess what they call a harem type of comics. It was love triangle. So it was Tenchi and then these other 2 girls who really love them. One's a space pirate, the other one's a space princess. And there's all kinds of wackiness. And they have TV shows, they have movies, they have all kinds of stuff on them. Yeah. And they said, okay, yeah, we want you to do an original series. So I ended up doing a 6-issue series on it. And myself and Matt, and that paid even better than the porn. Yeah. There you go. The only problem was that at the end of that run, or close to the end, to the editor, she ran off with a chunk of Pioneer's money. I mean, we're talking about 40, 50K. She ran off with a bunch of that money, and they wanted us to do probably another 18 issues, but because they had done well, but they had she ran off with their budget. So yeah, that kind of hurt. That sucked. Yeah. And we had there was that one. There was something called Phantom Quest Corps, which only 1 issue came out, which is a shame because I'd written all 4 issues. But the first issue came out. It was a lot of fun. It was about think of Hellboy as a woman. Okay. Yeah. Right. All right. Except she had a lightsaber instead of a big fist, and she had this I think it was like a 12-year-old manservant. Okay. All right. So it was kind of hilarious. It was just like, okay. I think it might have been like a demon trapped in a human's body. Gotcha. Or like transformed into. That's what I like to think, because it really was child slavery. But I was just like, back in the 90s, things were a little different. So
I was gonna say you could get away with that in the 90s. Yeah, exactly, for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. It was kind of funny, but so I wrote that. That was a lot of fun, and then then we were back at doing porn again, and then
these sentences are killing me.
I know. We were back to doing porn again, and then we what had happened was the editor there who came in to replace the prior editor, somebody you might know. I'm gonna out him. Actually, I've outed him before. It doesn't really matter. C.B. Sobolski.
Oh, okay.
he wanted to bring in the actual manga from Japan. He didn't want two New York guys working on his precious characters.
Right.
So even though the Japanese were saying they liked our stuff better than they liked their stuff, so it was just like whatever. But so we ended up moving on. Then I ended up forming a Dreamweaver Press.
Yeah.
And that's when I started doing let's see, we were doing Tall Tales, right? And we were still doing that, and then I was also writing the Oswald Chronicles, and that's where that came from. So, and originally it was in prose, and then about, I don't know, 11 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, I had a windfall of money just dropping in my lap, probably about $5,000.
Okay.
I just had it.
Yeah.
Right. It just, money I was supposed to spend someplace else, and they said, "Nah, don't worry about it." I was like, "Okay."
That's nice. Yeah.
Right. So, most normal people would save it, go on a vacation, put it to their retirement.
Yeah. Comics.
Yeah. Went out, hired an artist, Jade Gonzalez and Liz Buenaventura. She was the colorist. And I had, and I was like, it's good, I'm gonna do that. And that was the first, that was Fallen Gods, and that was the first thing I did. It was 140 pages.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it was just and then once that was done, I was like, oh man, am I gonna continue this? And I was like, okay, sure, why not? And then at the time I was playing poker online. Okay.
All right.
So I was playing poker online, and I was doing well. I was like king of the $1 and $5 sit and goes.
Yeah.
Those were like 5 or 6 people would get in. Right. And I was killing those tables. I was murdering. And I would pay 5-6 tables at a time. And I had, some money, and I remember I said I had so much. I was like, okay, let me cash out. And I cashed out. I remember getting an envelope, like just this plain old envelope, and it was just the most generic looking check you could ever get. I was like, okay.
That's funny.
I didn't realize, because what they were doing was they were funneling it through these backdoor companies.
Yeah.
That's why they all got cut off.
Yeah.
That's why the U.S. the government just came and cut them all off.
Yeah.
But I got this money, and I used that money to fund the next couple of projects on the Oswald Chronicles.
That's hilarious.
So let's see. Porn, shady gambling. I'm seeing a pattern here,
okay,
JD. This is I like it. You're like the Godfather of comics. Yeah, all right, I like it.
Your next funding source is from like Pablo Escobar or something like that.
Yeah, listen, I can only be so lucky.
I met him in an airport, and we just got to talking.
We bumped into each other, and he loves comics, and
he loves comics. He asked me to carry this package from point A to point B.
He said, "All your comics worries are over now.
Over. Don't even worry about it.
Just be my mule one time. That's all we need."
So and then this thing happened. Kickstarter.
Yeah, there it is. Yep.
And there it is. And then it's just been that ever since. It's just been Kickstarter. But the only thing is that when I first started Kickstarter, nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew what was happening. I had originally started doing these little hardcover books, right? So that's how I started. I was, I'm just going to do like trade paperbacks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'd done a hardcover book. I set my goal, which most people consider reasonable these days, was $5,000. And I drove myself insane for 30 days trying to raise this money. We got it. We raised $5,400 or something. Put out the book. It was so stressful. It took me another 2 years to put out my next Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So then that was another hardcover, and I only tried to raise $3,500, and I raised it. And again, I was just like, it was too much. And then about a year later, I put out Tall Tales. It was the omnibus, right? And I think that one we went for a lower thing. We went for like probably $2,000, and we raised that one fairly easy. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm tired of stressing myself out. We started doing comic books of the series. I would just break down the graphic novels and just do them as comics. And I put my caps at 500, which some people agree with and some people don't. Some people feel that, by setting it as such a low bar, what you do is you don't incentivize your backers to really push you, right? Yeah. So that's one common argument. The other one is by setting it so low, you don't push yourself.
Yeah.
You don't push yourself.
Yeah.
Now, my reasoning is like, I don't want to push myself.
Right.
I don't want to drive myself crazy.
Right.
That was really what it is. I was stressed out, man. I was just like, my father had a heart condition, and a lot of it's stress related. I don't need to be going through that. I'm already a New Yorker. I don't need to go into any more stress than what I'm going through now,
Yeah.
Just stepping out the front door.
Like, I think as long as you can cover the expenses that you need to get the book printed, to get the book out to people, and to have good quality stuff that represents your art well, that's all you need. Now if it naturally grows and you set it at 500 and then, you end up getting, 5,000 every time. Right. Well, then maybe raise the goal and then, so on and so forth. So like us, like our sweet spot has been $2,000. Right. And we really haven't, we've done a $5,000 one for the trade paperback. And it wasn't stressful because we have like a really like amazing core group of people that just show up hard and heavy in the first 24 hours. But especially like this year, we're releasing more than once a year. So you got to pay attention to that. You can't just oversaturate people because eventually they won't be able to afford it. Yeah. But no, I think if all that balances, then you're good to go, man. Because the more stress you put on yourself, that's more time where you don't get to create. You don't get to focus that energy on creating because you're just stressed the whole time.
Oh, yeah. Exactly, and then you just end up eating bonbons and watching TV. But what's funny is I've had that conversation about releasing too much stuff because I've had a tendency over the last couple of years to just what I've been doing is I'll release Kickstarters almost. All right, I would finish one. You have 2 weeks to get your money from Kickstarter, right? Yeah. And then but during that period, I would have the books printing, right? So by the time I got my money, the book's already printed and we're already packaging. Yep. So by the third week, we're pretty much done. And then the fourth week, it's gone. Everything's out the door, finished, nice. Whatever. Yeah. And then that next week, I have another Kickstarter.
Yep.
So I've been doing that. And then also I've started doing the same thing with Indiegogo. So I've been putting stuff on there. Indiegogo is a tough nut though. Yeah. That one, I've heard. When they tell you better bring your audience, you better have one. Because I'm there, like a Kickstarter, I got 40, maybe 50 people that as soon as I put it out, they're going to show up. Yeah. Okay. They're going to show up. And then that'll grow to like 60, 70, 80, people, and I'll walk away anywhere from 15 to 2,200, something like that. Maybe sometimes I get up to 3,000, in Indiegogo, poof, man, just cracking $500
is a big deal. Yeah.
It's a big deal for me. Yeah. It's a tough night. I got like 6, maybe 7 people that'll show up every time. Cause I've done 4 or 5 of them. So so it's getting it from those to like 20 or 30 people. Yeah. Just keep on going. Just keep.
Why do you think that is? Why is it so much more difficult?
I think because the algorithm, with Kickstarter, it's such a big platform. You have people looking.
Yeah.
Yep.
The moment you put it up, you just have these people that they're just fans. They're just looking for stuff to back. Yeah. And if they like your stuff, they'll just back it. Whereas in Indiegogo, you don't have as much of that. So you have to really, really find those people who like using that platform because I found that people who buy on one don't buy on the other.
Yeah.
Just like there are people who like comic books, meaning, saddle stitch books, who like those as opposed to trade paperbacks. Because they're totally two different crowds. You have your trade paperback people, and that's all they want. They want the full story in one package, and then you have people who just want comic books for whatever reason. Yeah. So it's the same thing. They're just two different crowds, and it's just trying to work both of them at the same time is just, it's a little tricky. The only good thing is that the one fantastic thing I found about Indiegogo is that store, because you can leave it on in demand. So you can finish the campaign, right? You leave it on in demand, right? And you just keep selling.
Yeah.
So every now and again, I'll get an email from Indiegogo and they'll be like, oh, we're sending you $150.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's this about? And I'm like, oh, the store is still open. I got to send somebody their books. You know, they're going to go fulfill their order.
Yeah.
So that's actually pretty cool. So, you know,
that is cool.
But like I said, now it's just Indiegogo, Kickstarter. Both of them are fantastic. And yeah, I think I've run 17, 18 different campaigns on
That's
Kickstarter.
awesome.
Maybe like six on Indiegogo.
Yeah.
But you know, it's expensive, you know, and that's the thing. I don't take any of the money. All of it goes out to my artists.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
You know, I like, you know, when the government comes after me, I'll be like, look, 0, 0, 0, 0 for me.
I have nothing.
Exactly. I ain't got jack. I got jacked. That's how I got.
Yes,
this,
exactly.
you know?
I am a glutton for punishment. See, look at this right here. Oh man. Well, let's dive in a little bit, Jeremy. You want to ask our next question? I want to dive into the Oswald Chronicles.
Yeah, you mentioned the Oswald Chronicles a few minutes ago. Mm-hmm. How did all that come to life? Like, where did that come from in your imagination?
Okay, so this. All right, sit down.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. Exactly.
Things are getting weird.
Yeah, during that period, I was writing the adult comics. There were. Okay, I'm the type of person when I get a professional job. Mm-hmm. Or just any job, just even my regular day job, you know, if I get a task, I tend to try to get it done like in 10 minutes, like as quickly as possible. I mean, I get it done like fast, right? So those 12 issues or those 10 issues I had to write for that series, I wrote it in a month and a half. Okay. So I banged it out. I was like, boom, 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 here you go. Right. And, you know, they paid me and I was like, oh, so what am I going to do now? Because at the time I wasn't working a regular day job. I was just living off of that. So I was like, what am I going to do now? So I said, okay, let me write something. So I started writing in prose because I wasn't working with any artists. So I was like, okay, so let me write this. And I came up with the Oswald Chronicles. And that basically came about because Daphne and I were walking and, you know, I showed her a flower bed and I'm like, oh, look, those flowers all chewed up. I said, there must be some fairy that's really pissed off. Some troll ate her flowers. And she was like, oh, that's stupid. And I was like, and I was just like, no, that's a really good story. She was like, no. And I was like, yes, it is. And then I wrote the Oswald Chronicles. I wrote the first one. Yeah. It's called the Park Avenue Mall Wars. She disagrees with me. She says she didn't say that. And I was like, no, I was there.
Yeah.
I wrote about it in my diary.
Yeah. I felt the pain. I told her, as a matter of fact, that night I left her house. I was taking the train home and I was writing that story on the train. I pulled out a notebook and a pen, and I just started writing.
Yeah.
So the Oswald Chronicles came out of a hurtful disagreement with your wife. That's hilarious.
It came out of pure anger.
Just pure rage.
Yes. And it hasn't subsided. So, you know, and then, you know, you go on and you build on the story because the next story was supposed to be something completely different. And what's funny is it's this story. This is my next Kickstarter.
Oh, nice.
You know, I printed out I had samples printed out. So the first 2 issues that I'll be offering up. And it's called We Were Just Passing Through. And it's about these guys literally passing through Oswald's home. And they're the ones, there's a race called Calcians that live in New York City. They live in Central Park. Well, they live all over the place. Yeah. But their main stronghold is in Central Park in New York. And they're called Calcians, and they're race of magic users. And they've been around, in my universe, they've been around the continent longer than man has. Okay? They saw when man was coming, and they had made a deal with another race called the Grogs, who are basically their enemies.
Yeah.
And they came together to create 2 pieces of magic. One of them is a stone that allows, because the Fae, which are the fairies, they're different than this race. The Fae, we can't see them because of their glamour, okay? So they're there, but we don't see them, right? These guys, they don't have that. So they had to create a magic to hide themselves from humanity, and that's what they did. But one race has the actual stone that's the actual focal point of magic that allows all of them to be invisible to humanity.
Yeah.
The other race has the key to the vault of where that piece is at.
Okay.
The Calcians have the actual item. The Grogs have the key. The key is always being moved around, so the Calcians never know where it's at. Okay. The Calcians discover where it's at, and they go steal it.
Nice.
Right? Because you always have some prick who's like, well, we're doing well, but we could be doing better.
Yeah.
You always have that asshole, right?
Yeah.
You always have that guy. There's always that guy in that group. Yeah, we made $1 million last year, but yeah, if we hit that guy over the head, we can make $3 million.
I want you to know right then, you sounded exactly like Joe Pesci. I don't know if you're aware of this, but that was hilarious, sir.
But you always have that, you always have that guy,
Yeah.
So that's how we end up with so many billionaires.
Right.
And the rest of us just being us.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's the crux of the story. And basically what it is this group introduces Oswald to magic, because Oswald himself, he's an anomaly.
Yeah.
He's he's just a normal mouse for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
But he is he's a junction point between magic and what we will refer to as our normal world.
Mm-hmm.
He can cross between both. He can cross between the world of man and the world of fae.
Yeah.
And he's a focal point of magic, and he's a savant at it. So he learns very fast.
Yeah.
And certain people will be like, oh, well, because he's a Mary Sue. And I'm like, no, because he's a mouse.
Yeah.
And if you ever look at mice, they mature from being a little puppy, the little pinkies, to being the monster that's eating the cookies in your kitchen in about 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's the same span that it would take from a human child to becoming like 18, 19 years old. Okay.
Yeah.
What they do in 2 months, takes us 18 years.
Yeah.
So that was my thought processes of how fast he learns.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what would take us that amount of time, he learns in like a few minutes, what would probably take the rest of us a couple of years to learn.
Yeah.
So that was my process with this character, because I was like, he's a mouse. He's not a human. Okay. Yeah. And sometimes he acts like a mouse, meaning if he's cornered, he'll attack you. But it's in such a vicious way. He's an animal. He'll kill you. You understand? It's not like where we'll stop. If we get cornered, we're like, hey, buddy, let's talk about this.
Yeah,
you can put that down. There's no reason for this, right? No, he hits straight to the jugular, and it's just like, okay, and then we're gonna just move on. And it has, and the thing is trying to figure out the mentality of that character like that. You understand? Because the character himself, Oswald, is very sweet, kind. He genteel type of character. That's how I built him up.
Yeah.
But in the end, he's a mouse. He's an animal. And that's where the thing is like, even though he has this structure in his mind of like who he is and of being formal and being kind, there'll come a point where if he gets pushed hard enough, he's just gonna be like, it's a whole different thing. Yeah. So and the thing is okay, so we have this is his first introduction into magic. So this is where he starts to learn how to what they call scrolling, which is basically someone taking a piece of paper and writing a sigil, and then that's how they cast their magic. And it's considered the most powerful form of magic. And it's considered because in the world I've created, what you're doing is you're warping reality by changing the word of God. Okay. So basically the concept is that in every atom that is in us, string theory, whatever.
Yeah.
The word of God is written into it. Okay. And it has his name on it. All right. So that's how he's the creator. And to warp reality, you have to change that name. You have to be able to recast those words.
Okay.
Oswald can do that stuff innately. So he's just one of these things. Whereas, others, it would take years to learn. He learned it very fast. And then the other thing is that, there is a cost, right? Yeah. Where, you're fueling off of your own soul, or you're fueling off of other people's souls, or you're fueling off of life force, all these different things. Oswald learns much later where the cost for him is coming, because he's never felt it. He's never felt this sort of thing happen. But later on, as he gets older, and he ends up going into dream. He ends up becoming the emperor of a people called the Mar. He ends up living like an 80-year lifespan in dream within 2 weeks of his life. So he's basically in a coma for 2 weeks. He's in dream for 80 years. So when he walked in, I would imagine the equivalent maturity level of a 21, 22-year-old.
Yeah.
And now he's lived 80 years, most of it as an emperor, father, grandfather, husband, and at war for 60 to 70 of those years. And then he comes back to the mall, to the real world, and he's just like...
It's a senior year in college.
Well, it's well beyond that. It's well beyond that, because he at that point he's a very powerful battle mage, and he's learned, he's studied.
So those powers and things carry over then into the real world.
Exactly, because it's not powers, it's study.
Right.
Because what he did was he studied, and what he would do is he would freeze time. It was one of the things he learned how to learn to do early on. He would freeze time. He would go into his library, freeze time. So to the outside world, it looked like he was in there for an hour. He was in there for a couple of months.
Man, I wish I could do that. Jeez.
Right. Exactly. He was warned never to do that because he could freeze himself in time. And he's like, I worked out the spell. And
I ain't worried about it. Don't worry.
He's like, I worked out the spell.
Directions. Wow.
Yeah. And he worked out the spell so that when he walks into it, so long as he doesn't have to go to the bathroom, like he already went to the bathroom and he's already eaten, for that amount of time he's in that spell, he's like that for the entire time.
I'm jealous of your character.
So and then it just gets crazy, because it gets to a point. It was like you're dealing with Superman, right? Like Superman, I always considered to be a ridiculous character because I'm like, he can do anything.
Yeah,
he could walk through a wall. He can cut you in half. He can freeze you. He could smack you to the other side of the moon, and he can stand in space and hear people screaming and go rescue them.
Yeah,
you understand? Like it doesn't matter. There should be no crime.
Right. Yeah, that's why I was so glad that they introduced the new gods and that Darkseid really became his equal as a villain, because you're right. There are ways to write Superman with Lex Luthor and things like that, but it's very it can get boring very quickly because he should just be able to world peace. Right. You know what I mean? But no, I think that when you're dealing with a character like Superman, who is this to us all powerful being, right? Well, what if his equal enters and he's evil? That's where the Superman stories get really interesting for me.
Yeah. With Oswald, what I've done is I throttled him because he knows how he gets his power, right? And it terrifies him at the cost of what it does. Not to him personally, but to those around him. Yeah. Okay? Because he eventually finds out that basically he's being fueled by life that's around him. He's basically a giant leech. So if he casts a spell, if it's a small spell or just a regular spell, all right. So if he has 10,000 people around him, all of those people have probably lost an hour of their lives.
Oh man. Yeah.
Because of that spell. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if he casts a huge spell, those people will just start dying.
Oh crap.
Okay. So that's
heavy consequences.
Right. Yeah. So that's why he's learned to deflect magic, because that's one of the things he's very good at. He'll deflect it, he'll absorb it, he'll capture it, use it later. Like other people will use magic on him, he'll capture it and he'll use it later.
So that way he's not pulling from anybody. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's one of the ways I learned how to throttle him. Also, the other way I deal with him is emotionally. When it gets down to dealing with his family and his friends. So you deal with the character on an emotional level. So then that way, you're not dealing with such, these crazy things that he can do. There's a reason why he has to have this level of power, and it's building to it. And I'm at a point now where I'm probably 5 or 6 stories from finishing. the entire series.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, I'm 1,200 pages in.
Yeah.
I have like 1,200 pages worth of material in. It's probably about 30, 32, 33 comics. I'm figuring it's going to take me at least 30 to 40, probably another 15 to 2,000 pages.
Yeah.
To finish. And I have every intention on finishing.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, you've sold me. I jumped on the last Kickstarter that you did, and I am very much looking forward to reading this series and then getting caught up, you know, to where we are now. I'm pumped, dude. And this sounds like you're obviously a very talented writer and an amazing world builder. So
I was captured.
I'm pumped to jump into this series. Before we're actually going to have to wrap up, we're going to have you back on because there were other questions that I wanted to get to that we aren't able to today. But before we head out, before you tell everybody that where they can find your work, we have the Dastardly Dingo flashcard round led by our own Jeremy Woodring.
That's right. So yeah, I've got a deck of cards, and they're all like would you rather questions. So I
was just going to say 9.
I just shuffled it up and pull one off the top. So the question is, would you rather be able to erase people's memory or predict their future?
Erase their memories.
Okay. What makes you say that?
Well, because if I smack someone, I could just erase their memory right afterwards. And be like,
you know. What a New Yorker answer right there, man. I
can hit people.
I can just assault the crap out of people and then make them forget it.
Listen, I don't know about you, but I run across a lot of stupid. So stupid needs to be dealt with severely.
Yeah. Although if you erase their memory, they won't learn the lesson.
I know, but I'll be happy. Yeah. I'll feel satisfied. I'll say,
all right, fine. I can deal with it now. I've already beat the crap out of you. This is great. Oh man. Well, JD, thank you so much for being on, man. Before we head out, tell everybody where they can find your work.
You can find me at theoswaldchronicles.com, talltalesonline.com. You can find me on Facebook under JD Calderon, Twitter under the same thing, on DeviantArt under the Oswald Chronicles or JD Calderon. You can find me on YouTube under JD Calderon, where I do my podcast, where I've interviewed Mr. Brian Rodman himself, you know, sometime soon I gotta get Jeremy on there.
That's right.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
You know, we'll get you on there. And then sometimes I do a weekend, Sunday night sit down with a bunch of other creators at 7:30 p.m. I'm doing another one this weekend, and you know, just come on out and we just ask all kinds of goofy questions, get into the business of comics, and sometimes just the nerdery of it.
Yeah,
that's cool. Awesome.
Cool. And like he said, I've been a guest on the show a couple times, and it's great. I've watched it and I love being a part of it. You have a Kickstarter coming up, don't you?
Yes. Well, it's coming up. So in the first week of February, these will be going up. These are the first 2 issues.
Yeah.
You know, so those will be coming up. It's for we were just passing through, and it's the Oswald Chronicles. It'll be up there. Please go check it out. You know, I aim to entertain. So
that's right. Cool.
You know, like I like to say, it's the greatest mouse adventure going today.
Well, man, you sold me. I'm gonna definitely whenever you do a Kickstarter, I'll be there. You have my sword, sir, as it were.
Thank you.
So thank you all for tuning in to the Dastardly Dingoes podcast. Remember to hit like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Also, hit that bell so you can get notified when we have a new episode. And as always, have fun, be safe, and don't wait for the week to be yours. Make it. See you next time, everybody. Thank you, JD, for being here, buddy.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Jeremy.
Yep.
It was great.